Call Colum Eastwood to conclude and wind up the debate on the motion.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker, and can I thank most of the speakers for their contributions today. I think it's been a good debate. Unfortunately, it's been a debate that we've had to have for a long time, and as has been referred to within the motion and continuously throughout this debate, it's been a debate we've been having for 50 years. And we're not just mentioning the Lockwood report on the 50-year anniversary because we've kind of some nostalgic notion about 1965. It's because that was a great wrong that was committed by this place in a different incarnation to the people of the North West. And I think the reason we reference it is because it's a wrong that's never been righted, and I think it's about time that it is. In fact, if you look through some of the papers from 1965, the government of the day were originally going to just use the Lockwood report to close down Magee as it was. They were just going to close Magee, even in the limited way that it was operating at that time. But it was felt that because of some of the protests that were happening, they would have to have Magee remain in place, throw it a bone of a few arts courses, and that would keep the people of Derry happy. Well, it didn't, Mr Deputy Speaker, and it's clear that I think in some quarters some of that attitude still exists. Throw them a few courses and they'll be happy enough. Well, we're not happy, Mr Deputy Speaker, as you've probably worked out, and we believe very strongly that unless we address this issue, then we're never going to get Derry's never going to be able to reach its full potential. In fact, Northern Ireland isn't going to be able to reach its full potential. And if you look at all the economic league tables, Derry and the North West in general is at the wrong end of all of them. It's a point I've made before, but in terms of economic activity, the Derry City Council area is the lowest in the north at 55%, with the Northern Ireland average being 67%. We have the highest percentage of job seekers allowance claimants across Ireland or Britain, and I think we're only second to Strabane, our new council partner, in terms of long-term claimants. So this isn't an argument about a university just for the sake of having an argument about a university. This is an argument about the economy, because every economist in the world that I've talked to or read about or listened to understands that without a real investment in skills, you can never reach your economic potential. And we have a lot of discussion at the moment about corporation tax. And corporation tax is one was described as a game changer by many people. If you ask the business people, the community people, the political people in Derry, the game changer for us is Magee's expansion, because corporation tax is one fiscal tool within any government's armour. If you ask anybody looking to invest around the world, they'll tell you that the most important thing when they look at different cities and sites across the world, the most important aspect that they look at is skills. Skills is the #1 thing in terms of attracting foreign direct investment, in terms of encouraging entrepreneurial people to set up companies and to create jobs. You know, if you look at North East Donegal, a place that has a 12.5% corporation tax for over 30 years, they've had no real university provision and no motorway provision, and they've suffered, unlike the rest of the island across the border, they've suffered unemployment in the same way that Derry has, because the Southern Government understood in Galway and Cork and Limerick that if you put a university doing the right kind of courses, whether it's pharmaceutical courses or IT courses, and you put a decent road network, then corporation tax, yes, will be beneficial, but it wouldn't work without those other fundamentals. So our argument is that unless, and we agree with the Minister in this, and I'm surprised at some of his attitude today, but we agree with the Minister in this, that how can you have a budget that cuts, that says we're most in favour of creating an economy and developing an economy, but at the same time cuts the skills agenda whilst protecting Derry. I think that's a bizarre position for any government to adopt, and we support the Minister in that. I think the Minister kind of undermined his argument slightly when he seemed to be putting up more and more obstacles to Magee's expansion. And I think people in Derry will be asking questions tonight. What is the Minister's real attitude to this? We take him in some of his earlier commitments. We take those, I think, at face value, and we've told him that we'll support him in any bid that he wants to make. But the motion in front of you is about the one plan, is about the executive as a whole, because we believe this is an issue of such importance that has to be taken by the executive as a whole. You know, and I don't want to go back over recent history, but it is important to point out, and I think Ms Lowe did this, to say this, that the one plan was barely mentioned within the programme for government. There certainly was no specific commitment to the expansion of Magee in terms of the 9,400 students by 2020, and that's why we don't have it yet. Because if you don't have a commitment on a programme for government, you don't have a commitment on a budget, you don't have it delivered. So we all know the history of that, but what we need to do now is begin to change things for the future. That's why we're supportive of the North West Ministerial Subgroup. In fact, we were supportive of it 4 years ago when in a meeting I remember us proposing it to the First and Deputy First Minister, because we understood that without proper ministerial and executive commitment around the one plan to deliver that, it would never happen. And I'm glad to see that has now taken shape, and we think that's the right place for these types of discussions. But this isn't just a discussion about Derry, Mr Deputy Speaker. This is a discussion about the economy and about skills across the north. We send, I think, 5,400 students to Britain every year. In fact, I think in terms of across the water, we are one of the highest places in terms of sending people to university. The problem that we have is most of them have to go, or many of them have to go across the water to actually find a place, because England abolished the Mazen cap, whereas we have kept it. And I think that goes contrary to any argument about trying to develop an economy. And as other speakers have said, you cannot do that unless you make a real governmental commitment, executive commitment, to funding higher education places in the north. Because we shouldn't be spending fortunes of money educating young people to a very high standard, then sending them off to Liverpool or Glasgow or London or Dublin to contribute to that economy. And I think less than 20% of them actually ever come home after they do that. So this is an argument, Mr Deputy Speaker, not just, as I think Mr Ramsey said, not just about Derry people whinging again. It's not that at all. It's about Derry people understanding, and I was delighted to hear some of the DUP speakers recognise the fact that there has been decades of underinvestment in our city, and that the only way to resolve that issue is to have overinvestment in it now, to prioritise the places like our city, like Strabane, like the North West, that hasn't had the commitment that we needed to see over the years. And I want to pay tribute to some of the people who did fight this campaign 50 years ago, people like Micheál Canavan and John Hume and others, and it has been pointed out that this was a cross-community campaign, because the economy isn't just a one-sided issue. But what we have now is the same issue has still to be fought on, and we've seen internet campaigns, we've seen the University for Derry campaign, we've seen people still having to fight this issue. I think it's a real disappointment and a real disgrace that we still have to battle all along these lines. Let's do one thing, Mr Deputy Speaker, to address the economic difficulties of the North West. Let's finally, for once and for all, commit as an Assembly, as an executive, to investing in university places in Magee, to expanding the numbers, to doing the right type of courses, to finally and once and for all attracting jobs for our people so they don't have to go to Glasgow or London or Manchester or Australia and never come back. I think that's a legacy that we have been left with. It's a legacy that we have to address, and if we don't do it, I think we'll have played a real disservice to the people of our city and the people of the North in general. Thank you.